And I think that's all of the places I'm supposed to share this. It's been so long, I've forgotten what all I'm supposed to be doing here as a person who does things on YouTube. Oh, one more. One more important one. There we go. Okay. Now for the ASMR part. Oh, that's right. That is going to happen soon. Sorry, minor spoilers to myself. Yes, we're going to go there today. Okay. Oh. Welcome everybody, and welcome future time people, whatever. Anyway, tonight we are going to be doing The Two Towers, Chapter 3, The Urukai. Pippin lay in a dark and troubled dream. I don't know if you heard that. Little tiny electric bicycle went by. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. My windows are so noisy. I hope you guys can't hear them, but I bet you can. My apologies. It seemed that he could hear his own small voice echoing in black tunnels, calling, "Frodo, Frodo." But instead of Frodo, hundreds of hideous orc faces grinned at him out of the shadows. Hundreds of hideous arms grasped at him from every side. Where was Merry? He woke. Cold air blew on his face. He was lying on his back. Evening was coming, and the sky above was growing dim. He turned and found that the dream was little worse than the waking. His wrists, legs, and ankles were tied with cords. Beside him Merry lay, white-faced, with a dirty rag bound across his brow. All of them sat or stood, all about them sat or stood a great company of orcs. Slowly in Pippin's aching head, memory pieced itself together and became separated from dream shadows. Of course, he and Merry had run off into the woods. What had come over them? Why had they dashed off like that, taking no notice of old Strider? They had run a long way shouting. He could not remember how far or how long. And then suddenly they had crashed right into a group of orcs. They were standing, listening, and they did not appear to see Merry and Pippin until they were almost in their arms. Then they yelled, and dozens of other goblins had sprung out of the trees. Merry and he had drawn their swords, but the orcs did not wish to fight, and had tried only to lay hold of them, even when Merry had cut off several of their arms and hands. Good old Merry. Then Boromir had come leaping through the trees. He had made them fight. He slew many of them, and the rest fled. But they had not gone far on the way back when they were attacked again, by 100 orcs at least, some of them very large, and they shot a rain of arrows, always at Boromir. Boromir had blown his great horn till the woods rang, and at first the orcs had been dismayed and had drawn back. But when no answer but the echoes came, they had attacked more fiercely than ever. Pippin did not remember much more. His last memory was of Boromir leaning against a tree, plucking out an arrow. Then darkness fell suddenly. "I suppose I was knocked on the head," he said to himself. "I wonder if poor Merry is much hurt. What has happened to Boromir? Why didn't the orcs kill us? Where are we, and where are we going?" He could not answer the questions. He felt cold and sick. "I wish Gandalf had never persuaded Elrond to let us come," he thought. "What good have I been? Just a nuisance. A passenger, a piece of luggage." I'm sorry, there's no good way to explain why that made me laugh, except Kagudes. Yep. No one in this stream will get that reference, but I will. And now I have been stolen, and I am just a piece of luggage for the orcs. I hope Strider or someone will come and claim us. But ought I to hope for it? Won't that throw out all the plans? I wish I could get free. He struggled a little, quite uselessly. One of the orcs sitting near laughed and said something to a companion in their abominable tongue. "Rest while you can, little fool," he said to Pippin, in the common speech, which he made almost as hideous as his own language. "Rest while you can. We'll find a use for your legs before long. You'll wish you had got none of them before we got home. Oh, sorry. You'll wish you had got none before we get home." "If I had my way, you'd wish you were dead now," said the other. "I'll make you squeak, you miserable rat." He stooped over Pippin, bringing his yellow fangs close to his face. He had a black knife and a long jagged blade in his hand. "Lie quiet, or I'll tickle you with this," he hissed. "Don't draw attention to yourself, or I may forget my orders," cursed the Isengarders. Oh, great, I get to speak orc now. Oh, man, I wasn't ready for this. Hello, Michael. Look, Orcish is hard. Ugluk, Ubagronk, Shapushtug, Saruman Glob, Buvosh Sky. Thank you. Thank you, Tolkien. He passed into a long, angry speech in his own tongue that slowly died away into muttering and snarling. God, that sounds familiar, don't it just? Terrified, Pippin lay still, though the pain at his wrists and ankles was growing, and the stones beneath him were boring into his back. To take his mind off himself, he listened intently to all that he could hear. There were many voices round about, and though orc speech sounded at all times full of hate and anger, it seemed plain that something like a quarrel had begun and was getting hotter. To Pippin's surprise, he found that much of the talk was intelligible. Many of the orcs were using ordinary language. Apparently the members of 2 or 3 quite different tribes were present, and they could not understand one another's orc speech. There was an angry debate concerning what they were to do now, which way they were to take, and what should be done with the prisoners. I just want to make a note. Keep this in mind that I have two notes on the orcs, and I don't want to forget either one, but I probably will. "There's no time to kill them properly," said one. "No time for play on this trip." "That can't be helped," said another. "But why not kill them quick? Kill them now. They're a cursed nuisance, and we're in a hurry. Evening's coming. We ought to get a move on." "Orders," said a third in a deep growl. "Kill all but not the halflings. They are to be brought back alive as quickly as possible. That's my orders." "What are they wanted for?" asked several voices. "Why alive? Do they give good sport?" "No, I heard that one of them has got something that's wanted for the war. Some elvish plot or other. Anyways, they'll each be questioned." "Is that all you know? Why don't we search them and find out? We might find something that we could use ourselves." "That is a very interesting remark," sneered a voice, softer than the others, but more evil. "I may have to report that. The prisoners are not to be searched or plundered. Those are my orders." "And mine too," said the deep voice. "Alive and as captured. No spoiling. That's my orders." I kind of love this. It's funny. "Not our orders," said one of the earlier voices. "We've come all the way from the mines to kill and avenge our folk. I wish to kill, and then go back north." "Then you can wish again," said the growling voice. "I am Ugluk. I command. I return to Isengard by the shortest road." "Is Saruman the master or the great eye?" said the evil voice. "We should go back at once to Lugburs." "If we could cross the great river, we might," said another voice. "But there are not enough of us to venture down to the bridges." "I came across," said the evil voice. A winged Nazgul awaits us northward on the east bank. Maybe, then you'll fly off with our prisoners and get all the pay and praise in Lebur's and leave us to foot it as best we can through the horse country. No, we must stick together. These lands are dangerous, full of foul rebels and brigands. Aye, we must stick together, growled Ugluk. I don't trust you, little swine. You've no guts outside your own sties. But for us, you'd have all run away. We are the fighting Uruk-hai. We slew the great warrior. We took the prisoners. We are the servants of Saruman the Wise, the White Hand, the hand that gives us man's flesh to eat. We came out of Isengard and led you here, and we shall lead you back by the way we choose. I am Ugluk. I have spoken. You have spoken more than enough, Ugluk, sneered the evil voice. I wonder how they would like it in Lugburs. They might think that Ugluk's shoulders needed relieving of a swollen head. They might ask where his strange ideas came from. Did they come from Saruman, perhaps? Who does he think he is, setting up his own with his filthy white badges? They might agree with me, with Grishnach, their trusted messenger. Did I get that right? Well, Grishnach, their trusted messenger. And I, Grishnach, say this. Saruman is a fool, and a dirty, treacherous fool, but the great eye is on him. Swine, is it? How do you folk like being called swine by the muckrakers of a dirty little wizard? It's orc flesh they eat, I'll warrant. Many loud yells in orc speech answered him, and the ringing clash of weapons being drawn. Cautiously, Pippin rolled over, hoping to see what would happen. His guards had gone to join the fray. In the twilight, he saw a large black orc, probably Ugluk, standing facing Grishnach, a short, crook-legged creature, very broad and with long arms that hung almost to the ground. Round them were many smaller goblins. Pippin supposed that these were the ones from the north. They had drawn their knives and swords, but hesitated to attack Ugluk. Ugluk shouted, and a number of other orcs of nearly his own size ran up. Then suddenly, without warning, Ugluk sprang forwards, and with 2 swift strokes, swept the heads off 2 of his opponents. Grishnach swept aside and vanished into the shadows. The others gave way, and one stepped backwards and fell over Mary's prostrate form with a curse. Yet that probably saved his life, for Ugluk's followers leapt over him and cut down another with their broad-bladed swords. It was the yellow-fanged guard. His body fell right on top of Pippin, still clutching the long saw-edged knife. "Put up your weapons," shouted Ugluk, "and let's have no more nonsense. We go straight west from here, and down the stair. From there, straight to the downs, then along the river to the forest, and we march day and night. That clear?" Now, thought Pippin, if only it takes that ugly fellow a little while to get his troop under control, I've got a chance. A gleam of hope had come to him. The edge of the black knife had snicked his arm, and then slid down to his wrist. He felt the blood trickling onto his hand, but he also felt the cold touch of steel against his skin. The orcs were getting ready to march again, but some of the northerners were still unwilling, and the Isengarders slew 2 more before the rest were cowed. There was much cursing and confusion. For the moment, Pippin was unwatched. His legs were securely bound, but his arms were only tied about the wrists, and his hands were in front of him. He could move them both together, though the bonds were cruelly tight. He pushed the dead orc to one side, and then, hardly daring to breathe, he drew the knot of the wrist cord up and down against the blade of the knife. It was sharp, and the dead hand held it fast. The cord was cut. Quickly, Pippin took it in his fingers and knotted it again into a loose bracelet of 2 loops and slipped it over his hands. Then he lay very still. Ah, the one person who will understand the reference to luggage/furniture. Pippin earlier described himself as luggage, which made me laugh because my brain is dumb and makes silly jumps sometimes. So it just he called himself furniture like 3 times in a row. That's what did it. And I thought of Canon and his insistence that he is furniture. Oh yeah, we have a little break here, so I have to think of the 2 things that I said that I was going to forget. Okay. Pin number 2. We're going to start with 2 and go backwards. No, we're not. We have to start with 1 because 2 relies on... We're going to go in order. So number 1, we're going to learn this at some point, but I'm going to spoil it if it has not been brought up before. But this is also... how old is this book again? Old. Older than me. So, like... One of the things that is, like, canon compliant of the Tolkien universe and of many fantasy universes, actually, because it's kind of a core aspect of Western mythology. We'll call it mythology. Western mythology is that evil does not create, it only corrupts. So the orcs were elves. They were definitely elves at some point, and like maybe not each individual. We don't know how orcs create more works, and we're not going to get into that right now. But they are, or were. I don't know if anybody in the universe would consider themselves still to be necessarily related to elves, but they are. That's not something that they can really get around. So I always like to try to remember that every once in a while, because it makes what's going on so incredibly interesting to have contrasted in the last book. Yeah, like what Dag says, there were some interesting musings on behalf of Tolkien on if orcs were inherently evil. And keep in mind that Tolkien is writing for mythology. He's not necessarily writing for, like, I don't know what the opposite would be. He's writing a mythological tale here. So, like, in a lot of mythology, we have, for example, angels and devils or whatever who are, like, inherently good or something. Evil's weird. Especially when you get into monotheistic religions where it's like, no, God could never create evil because God is all capital G inherently good. That's just a really interesting aspect of philosophy that we could literally spend like a whole month straight of streaming just talking about. And people probably do. We are not going to do that though. But yeah, it's very interesting that he probably could have gotten away with that and still chose not to. I think that's an incredibly interesting and very important point. The second one, is the linguistics. This is definitely a part of the Tolkien canon, is that elves love to mess around and create new variations on their own languages. He literally created lots of them because he's a huge nerd. So that extends to include the orcs and their no longer mutually intelligible languages. It's very fun. %. I think Professor Tolkien enjoyed the countryside and had much respect, in his own way, for the folk of the country. All we really have to do is look at the hobbits to see that. "Pick up those prisoners," shouted Ugluk. "Don't play any tricks with them. If they're not alive when we get back, someone else will die too. An orc seized Pippin like a sack, put its head between his tied hands, grabbed his arms, and dragged them down until Pippin's face was crushed against his neck. Ooh, just imagine what that smells like. I'm sorry. It made me not feel good. Then it jolted off with him. Another entreated Merry in the same way. The orc's claw-like hands gripped Pippin's arms like iron. The nails bit into him. He shut his eyes and slipped back into evil dreams. Suddenly he was thrown onto the stony floor again. It was early night, but the slim moon was already falling westward. They were on the edge of a cliff that seemed to look out over a sea of pale mist. There was a sound of water falling nearby. The scouts have come back at last, said an orc close at hand. Well, what did you discover? Growled the voice of Ugluk. Only a single horseman, and he made off westwards. All's clear now. Now, I dare say, but how long? You fools, you should have shot him. He'll raise the alarm. The cursed horse breeders will hear of us by morning. Now we'll have to leg it double quick. A baby and a football. A shadow bent over Pippin. It was Ugluk. Sit up, said the orc. My lads are tired of lugging you about. We've got to climb down, and you must use your legs. Be helpful now. No crying out, no trying to escape. We have ways of paying for tricks that you won't like, though they won't spoil your usefulness for the master. He cut the thongs round Pippin's legs and ankles, picked him up by his hair, and stood him on his feet. Pippin fell down, and Ugluk dragged him up by his hair again. Several orcs laughed. Ugluk thrust a flask between his teeth and poured some burning liquid down his throat. It felt like a hot, fierce glow through him. The pain in his legs and ankles vanished. He could stand. Now for the other, said Ugluk. Pippin saw him go to Merry, who was lying close by, and kick him. Merry groaned. Seizing him roughly, Ugluk pulled him into a sitting position and tore the bandage off his head. Then he smeared the wound with some dark stuff out of a small wooden box. Merry cried out and struggled wildly. The orcs clapped and hooted. Can't take his medicine, they jeered. Doesn't know what's good for him. Aye, we shall have some fun later. I may have to make a quick pause here. I'm sorry. I am apparently supremely distracted tonight, but this will not take long because I, too, am a huge nerd. Huh. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Huh. Okay, well, anyway, enough of that. We'll look into that later. But, so apparently, that little exclamation that Ugluk says, or one of the orcs said, whoever said it. Yeah, random orc. AI. It's pan-Elvish, including Orcish, unless they're choosing to speak Elvish at this moment. It's just a exclamation, verbal exclamation point. Still, fun, interesting. No, I activated my own research card, like I said. Unfortunately, I too am a huge nerd. But at the moment, Ugluk was not engaged in sport. He needed speed and had to humor unwilling followers. He was healing Merry in orc fashion, and his treatment worked swiftly. God, this is so interesting, though. I've lost my place. I shook the book around and I lost my place. When he had forced a drink from his flask down the hobbit's throat, cut his leg bonds, and dragged him to his feet, Merry stood up, looking pale but grim and defiant, and very much alive. The gash in his forehead gave him no more trouble, but he bore a brown scar to the end of his days. "Hello, Pippin," he said. "So you've come on this little expedition, too. Where do we get bed and breakfast?" "Now then," said Ugluk, "none of that. Hold your tongues. No talk to one another. Any trouble will be reported at the other end, and he'll know how to pay you. You'll get bed and breakfast all right, more than you can stomach." Isn't it just, though? The orc band began to descend a narrow ravine, leading down into the misty plain below. Merry and Pippin, separated by a dozen orcs or more, climbed down with them. At the bottom they stepped onto grass, and the hearts of the hobbits rose. "Now, straight on," shouted Ugluk. "West and a little north. Follow Lugdush." "But what are we going to do at sunrise?" said some of the northerners. "Go on running," said Ugluk. "What do you think? Sit on the grass and wait for the whiteskins to join the picnic." "But we can't run in the sunlight." "You'll run with me behind you," said Ugluk, Brunt, "or you'll never see your beloved holes again. By the white hand, what's the use of sending out mountain maggots on a trip, only half trained? Run, curse you! Run while the night lasts." It was a fun couple of sentences. I think the professor enjoys playing evil sometimes. Then the whole company began to run with the long loping strides of orcs. They kept no order, thrusting, jostling, and cursing, yet their speed was very great. Each hobbit had a guard of 3. Pippin was far back in line. He wondered how long he would be able to go on at this pace. He had had no food since the morning. One of his guards had a whip, but at present the orc liquor was still hot in him. His wits, too, were wide awake. Every now and again there came into his mind, unbidden, a vision of the keen face of Strider bending over a dark trail and running behind. But what could even a ranger see except a confused trail of orc feet? His own little prince and Merry's were overwhelmed by the trampling of the iron-shod shoes before them and behind them and about them. They had only gone a mile or so from the cliff when the land sloped down into a wide, shallow depression, where the ground was soft and wet. Mist lay there, pale glimmering in the last rays of the sickle moon. The dark shapes of the orcs in front grew dim, and then were swallowed up. "Aye, steady now," shouted Ugluk from the rear. A sudden thought leapt into Pippin's mind, and he acted on it at once. He swerved aside to the right and dived out of the reach of his clutching guard, head first into the mist. He landed sprawling on the grass. "Halt!" yelled Ugluk. There was for a moment turmoil and confusion. Pippin sprang up and ran, but the orcs were after him. Some suddenly loomed up right in front of him. No hope of escape, thought Pippin, but there is a hope that I have left some of my own marks unspoilt on the wet ground. He groped with his 2 tied hands at his throat and unclasped the brooch of his cloak. Just as long arms and hard claws seized him, he let it fall. "There, I suppose it will lie until the end of time," he thought. "I don't know why I did it. The others have escaped. They've probably all gone with Frodo." A whip thong curled around his legs, and he stifled a cry. "Enough," shouted Ugluk, running up. "He's still got to run a long way yet. Make 'em both run. Just use the whip as a reminder." "But that's not all," he snarled, turning to Pippin. "I shan't forget. Payment is only put off. Leg it." Yeah, I definitely think the orcs are making... If I were to choose something to substitute in for whatever he gave Pippin, probably Malort. I have yet to try it, One day I shall. But probably Malort. It's from those northern countries that he seems to enjoy quite a bit. Neither Pippin nor Merry remembered much of the later part of the journey. Evil dreams and evil walking were blended into a long tunnel of misery, and hope growing ever fainter behind. They ran and they ran, striving to keep up the pace set by the orcs, licked every now and again with a cruel thong cunningly handled. If they halted or stumbled, they were seized and dragged for some distance. The warmth of the orc draught had gone. Pippin felt cold and sick again. Suddenly he fell face downward on the turf. Hard hands, with rending nails, gripped and lifted him. He was carried like a sack once more, and darkness grew about him. Whether the darkness of another night or a blindness of his eyes, he could not tell. Dimly he became aware of voices clamoring. It seemed that many of the orcs were demanding a halt. Ugluk was shouting. He felt himself flung to the ground, and he lay as he fell, till black dreams took him. But he did not long escape from pain. Soon the iron grip of merciless hands was on him again. For a long time he was tossed and shaken, and then slowly the darkness gave way, and he came back to the waking world and found that it was morning. Orders were shouted, and he was thrown roughly on the grass. There he lay for a while, fighting with despair. His head swam, but from the heat in his body, he guessed that he had been given another draught. Is that how that's said? That's not how we spell draft, is it? Like, God, tonight, I am so sorry. D-R-A-U-G-H-T.
Draft.
Shoot! Draft. That's how you English. Oh my God. English. Draft. Draft. Oh my goodness, English. An orc stooped over him and flung him some bread and a strip of raw, dried flesh. He ate the stale gray bread hungrily, but not the meat. He was famished, but not yet so famished as to eat flesh flung at him by an orc, the flesh of he dared not guess what creature. He sat up and looked about. Merry was not far away. They were by the banks of a swift, narrow river. Ahead, mountains loomed. A tall peak was catching the first rays of the sun. A dark smudge of forest lay on the lower slopes before them. There was much shouting and debating among the orcs. A quarrel seemed on the point of breaking out again between the Northerners and the Isengarders. Some were pointing back away south, and some were pointing eastward. Very well, said Ugluk. Leave them to me, then. No killing, as I've told you before. But if you want to throw away what we've come all the way to get, throw it away. I'll look after it. Let the fighting Uruk-hai do the work, as usual. If you're afraid of the Whiteskins, run. Run, there's the forest, he shouted, pointing ahead. Get to it. It's your best hope. Off you go, and quick, before I knock a few more heads off, to put some sense into the others. There was some cursing and scuffling, and then most of the Northerners broke away and dashed off, over 100 of them, running wildly along the river towards the mountains. The hobbits were left with the Isengarders, a grim, dark band, 80 at least, of large... A couple of descriptive terms that we are going to choose to just sort of skip over today. But I think most of us here are familiar that this book was written in a time that was a little bit less sensitive to how rude that could be. Orcs with great bows and short, broad-bladed swords. A few of the larger and bolder Northerners remained with them. Now we'll deal with Grishnach, said Ugluk, but some of his own followers were looking uneasily southwards. I know, said Ugluk, the cursed horse boys have got wind of us. But that's all your fault, Snaga. You and the other scouts ought to have your ears cut off. But we are the fighters. We'll feast on horse flesh yet, or something better. At that moment, Pippin saw why some of the troop had been pointing eastward. From the direction there now came horse cries. Oh, that's horse spelled H-O-A-R-S-E. Not like the furry creature horses. And there was Grishnach again, and at his back a couple score of others like him, long-armed, crook-legged orcs. They had a red eye painted on their shields. Ugluk stepped forward to meet them. So you've come back, he said. Thought better of it, eh? I've returned to see that orders are carried out and the prisoners are safe, answered Grishnach. Indeed, said Ugluk. Waste of effort. I'll see that orders are carried out in my command. And what else did you come back for? You went in a hurry. Did you leave anything behind? I left a fool, snarled Grishnach. But there were some stout followers with him that are too good to lose. I knew you'd lead them into a mess. I've come to help them. Splendid, laughed Ugluk. But unless you've got some guts for fighting, you've taken the wrong way. Lugbur's was your road. The Whiteskins are coming. Oh, I think that he does not talk about... I don't think he's talking about himself. I think he's talking about like the Eorlingas, the Rohirrim. What's happened to your precious Nazgul? Has he had another mount shot out under him? Now, if you'd brought him along, that might have been useful, if these Nazgul are all they make out. Nazgul, said Grishnach, shivering and licking his lips, as if the word had a foul taste that he savored painfully. That is weird, dude. You speak of what is deep beyond the reach of your muddy dreams, Ugluk, he said. Nazgul, all that they make out. One day you'll wish that you had not said that, ape. That's also an interesting insult, because Grishnach was definitely the one who was described as looking like a gorilla. You ought to know that they're not the apple. Oh, you ought to know that they're the apple of the great eye. But the winged Nazgul, not yet. He won't let them show themselves across the great river yet. Not too soon. They're for the war. And other purposes. What other purposes? You seem to know a lot, said Ugluk. More than is good for you, I guess. Perhaps those in Lugbur's might wonder now, and why. But in the meantime, the Uruk-hai of Isengard can do the dirty work, as usual. Don't stand slavering there. Get your rabble together. The other swine are legging it to the forest. You'd better follow. You wouldn't get back to the great river alive, right off the mark. Now, I'll be on your heels. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, this is really interesting. I vaguely remember this, but I mostly forgot it. I can't believe, but I somehow did remember the Uruk-hai, like, loving the smell of their own farts or something. But it's still really funny to see. The Isengarders seized Merry and Pippin again and slung them on their backs. Then the troops started off. After an hour they ran, pausing now and again only to sling the hobbits to fresh carriers, either because they were quicker and hardier, or because of some plan of Grishnach's. The Isengarders gradually passed through the orcs of Mordor, and Grishnach's folk closed in behind. Soon they were gaining on the northerners ahead. The forest began to draw near. Pippin was bruised and torn. His aching head was grated by the filthy jowl and hairy ear of the orc that held him. Woof. Immediately in front were bowed backs and tough, thick legs going up and down, unresting, as if they were made of wire and horn, beating out the nightmare seconds of an endless time. In the afternoon, Ugluk's troop overtook the northerners. They were flagging in the rays of the bright sun, winter sun shining in a pale, cool sky though it was. Their heads were down and their tongues lolling out. Maggots, jeered the Isengarders. You're cooked. The white... You're cooked. What? In what, 1954 didn't we figure out last time? I said figure out as if this wasn't pretty... 65? 1965. God, that's right. We did have to look that up last time. 1965 and you're cooked. Never. Did he coin that? He couldn't have. No way. Hey, Dag, do you want to go on a research quest? Figure out if Tolkien coined the phrase you're cooked. The Whiteskins will catch you and eat you. They're coming. So who are the Whiteskins? Are they not the White Hand? Is that just a thing? Do they actually believe that the Rohirrim will eat them? Or is this just like a normal thing in orc society that like, yeah, you're gonna get eaten? What's going on? A cry from Grishnak showed that this was not mere jest. Horsemen, riding very swiftly, had indeed been sighted, still far behind but gaining on the orcs, gaining on them like a tide over the flats on folk straying in a quicksand. What? Gaining on them like a tide over the flats on folk straying in a quicksand. Okay. The Isengarders began to run with a redoubled pace that astonished Pippin. A terrific spurt, it seemed, for the end of a race. Then he saw that the sun was sinking, falling behind the misty mountains. Shadows reached over the land. The soldiers of Mordor lifted their heads and also began to put on speed. The forest was dark and close. Already they had passed a few outlying trees. The land was beginning to slope upwards, ever more steeply, but the orcs did not halt. Both Ugluk and Grishnak shouted, spurring them on to a last effort. I wonder, because apparently the Mordor orcs, and possibly the northerner orcs too, I think that's actually what that was mentioned by, but... So the classic orcs have like this vague sort of sunlight weakness, which the Uruk-hai don't seem to have, which it is of itself interesting. And two, I wonder if the forests provide enough shelter. If so, that would be quite funny, because elves live in the forest. I don't know. Maybe we'll see later. I don't know if there's a whole lot of forest in Mordor, though, so maybe we won't. They will make it yet. They will escape, thought Pippin. And then he managed to twist his neck so as to glance back with one eye over his shoulder. He saw that riders away eastward were already level with the orcs, galloping over the plain. The sunset gilded their spears and helmets and glinted on their pale flowing hair. They were hemming the orcs in, preventing them from scattering, and driving them along the line of the river. He wondered very much what kind of folk they were. He wished now that he had learned more in Rivendell, and looked more at maps and things. But in those days, the plans for the journey seemed to be in more competent hands, and he had never reckoned with being cut off from Gandalf, or from Strider, or even from Frodo. All that he could remember about Rohan was that Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax, had come from that land. That sounded hopeful as far as it went. But how will they know that we are not orcs, he thought. I don't suppose they've ever heard of hobbits down here. I suppose I ought to be glad that the beastly orcs look like being that the beastly orcs look like being destroyed. I can't understand this sentence today. I suppose I ought to be glad that the beastly orcs look like being destroyed. Is he just saying because they look like they have been destroyed? I don't know. But I would rather be saved myself. The chances were that he and Mary would be killed together with their captors before ever the men of Rohan were aware of them. Yeah. Arrows rarely discriminate if you're on somebody's back. A few of the riders appeared to be bowmen, skilled at shooting from a running horse. Riding swiftly into range, they shot arrows at the orcs that straggled behind, and several of them fell. Then the riders wheeled away, out of the range of the answering bows of their enemies, who shot wildly, not daring to halt. This happened many times, and on one occasion arrows fell among the Isengarders. One of them, just in front of Pippin, stumbled and did not get up again. Night came down. Yeah, I need a little sip of water here or something. I don't know. Oh, it's because I had a lot of sugar for dinner. I made pancakes. I don't make pancakes except when I neglected to buy groceries. So I am overly sugared tonight. That explains a lot. Night came down without the riders closing in for battle. Many orcs had fallen, but fully 200 remained. In the early darkness, the orcs came to a hillock. The eaves of the forest were very, very near, probably no more than 3 furlongs away, but they could go no further. The horsemen had encircled them. A small band disobeyed Ugluk's command and ran on towards the forest. Only 3 returned. Well, here we are, sneered Grishnach. Fine leadership. I hope great Ugluk will lead us out again. Put those halflings down, ordered Ugluk, taking no notice of Grishnach. You, Lugdush, get 2 others and stand guard over them. They're not to be killed unless the filthy whiteskins break through, understand? As long as I'm alive, I want 'em. But they're not to cry out, and they're not to be rescued. Bind their legs. The last part of the order was carried out mercilessly, but Pippin found that for the first time he was close to Mary. The orcs were making a great deal of noise, shouting and clashing their weapons, and the hobbits managed to whisper together for a while. I don't think much of this, said Mary. I feel nearly done in. Don't think I could crawl away far, even if I was free. Lembas, whispered Pippin. Lembas, I've got some. Have you? I don't think that they've taken anything but our swords. Yes, I had a packet in my pocket, answered Mary, but it must have been battered to crumbs. Anyway, I can't put my mouth in my pocket. You won't have to, But just then, a savage kick warned Pippin that the noise had died down, and the guards were watchful. The night was cold and still. All round the knoll on which the orcs were gathered, little watchfires sprang up, golden red in the darkness, a complete ring of them. They were within a long bowshot, but the riders did not show themselves against the light, and the orcs wasted many arrows shooting at the fires, until Ugluk stopped them. The riders made no sound. Later in the night, when the moon came out of the mist, then occasionally they could be seen, shadowy shapes that glinted now and again in the white light, as they moved in ceaseless patrol. They'll wait for the sun, curse them, growled one of the guards. Why don't we get together and charge through? What's old Ugluk think he's doing? I should like to know. I dare say you would, snarled Ugluk, stepping up from behind. Meaning I don't think at all, eh? Curse you, you're as bad as the other rabble, the maggots and the apes of Lugburs. No good trying to charge with them. How do they know about apes? How do the orcs know about apes? Are there apes in, like, this region of Middle Earth? How do they know? No good trying to charge with them. They just squeal and bolt. And there are more than enough of these filthy horse boys. I've had far too much sugar tonight for this. And there are more than enough of these filthy horse boys to mop up our lot on the flat. There's only one thing those maggots can do. They can see like gimlets in the dark, but these whiteskins have better night eyes than most men, from all I've heard. And don't forget their horses. They can see in the night breeze, or so it's said. Still, there's one thing the fine fellows don't know. Mahur and his lads are in the forest, and they should turn up any time now. Ugluk's words were enough, apparently, to satisfy the Isengarders, but the other orcs were both dispirited and rebellious. They posted a few watchers, but most of them lay on the ground, resting in the pleasant darkness. It did indeed become very dark again, for the moon passed westward into thick cloud, and Pippin could not see anything a few feet away. The fires brought no light to the hillock. The riders were not, however, content merely to wait for the dawn and let their enemies rest. A sudden outcry on the east side of the knoll showed that something was wrong. It seemed that some of the men had ridden in close, slipped off their horses, and crawled to the edge of the camp and killed several orcs, and then had faded away again. Ugluk dashed off to stop a stampede. That is daring as fuck. Dang. No fear. Pippin and Merry sat up. Their guards, Isengarders, had gone with Ugluk, but if the hobbits had any thought of escape, it was soon dashed. A long, hairy arm took each of them by the neck and drew them close together. Dimly, they were aware of Grishnak's great head and hideous face between them. His foul breath was on their cheeks. He began to paw them and feel them. Pippin shuddered as hard, cold fingers groped down his back. "Well, my little ones," said Grishnak in a soft whisper, "enjoying your nice rest, or not? A little awkwardly placed, perhaps, swords and whips on one side, and nasty spears on the others. Little people should not meddle in the affairs that are too big for them." His fingers continued to grope. There was a light like a pale, but hot fire behind his eyes. The thought came suddenly into Pippin's mind, as if caught direct from the urgent thought of his enemy. Grishnak knows about the ring. He's looking for it, while Ugluk is busy. He probably wants it for himself. Cold fear was in Pippin's heart, yet at the same time he was wondering what use he could make of Grishnak's desire. "I don't think you will find it that way," he whispered. "It isn't easy to find." "Find it?" said Grishnak. His fingers stopped crawling and gripped Pippin's shoulder. "Find what? What are you talking about, little one?" For a moment Pippin was silent. Then suddenly, in the darkness, he made a noise in his throat. "Golem, golem." "Nothing, my precious," he added. The hobbits felt Grishnak's fingers twitch. "Oh ho?" hissed the goblin softly. "That's what he means, is it? Oh ho. Very, very dangerous, my